All right, welcome everybody to Event Marketing Redefined. Super stoked to have everybody here today, and really grateful for Gerilynn and Morgan to be here. So, real quick, just to kind of run into this, is I had Gerilynn, right, on our show. And a little while after that, Morgan had reached out. She's a listener of the show. I know some people that she works with. I have a connection with her company, and reached out and said that she had been listening to the podcast. And Morgan is fairly new, has a marketing background, but new to being thrown into events, which I think is a pretty common thread in events, right? You find your best marketer, your smartest, youngest, brightest, and you go, hey, here you go. And Morgan was looking for a mentor. She was looking for somebody that she could get questions answered, a person that could help her, guide her, help grow her skill set. And yeah, it just so happened to be perfect timing, honestly, because I had just had Gerilynn on, and Gerilynn talked a lot about mentorship and helping younger people, in a way giving back for her and sharing her knowledge. So I reached out to Gerilynn. She said yes. They've been working together now. I think it's close to 6 months. And we wanted to have them back on because I feel like this is such a topic, peer-to-peer, knowledge share, mentorship. It kind of all bundles together for event marketers, and just kind of have a discussion, check in, what's working, what's not, how it's going. So Gerilynn, welcome. Morgan, welcome. Thank you both for doing this. I really appreciate it.
No worries. I feel like it's like one of those after the rose ceremonies when everybody gets together after
Mm-hmm.
everything has gone on.
Yes.
Not that I watch any of that, but it feels like that.
Oh, I watch it.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm
was gonna say, where's Andy on Bravo when we need him? Not that you're not a great substitute, Matt, for Andy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. So yeah, so one thing I'll just kind of kick us off with before we start is this, just saying that I have firm like affirmation validation of how important mentorship is for event marketers. I think one of the biggest points I have here is essentially that like event marketers do typically get into event marketing by being thrown into the fire, right? There's very little formal education for it. It is learning, trial by error to a degree. So I think that's where mentorship becomes so important. That's where the peer-to-peer aspect becomes so important. So I think the first thing I want to ask is, Morgan, I want to talk to you about it, is like, what motivated you to ask and reach out to me to say, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. How can you help?
Yeah, so kind of like you said, I was doing marketing for Q-PAC, and then I realized that my passion lied in events. And so I kind of moved away from that general marketing role into more an events role. And then I
Mhm.
realized there was no one to look to in my company. So I needed to source outside advice. And so I dove into books, websites, podcasts. So that's when I came across your podcast. And then you spoke with Gerilynn, and I was like, I need a mentor like that. She understands how hard it is to find someone in this community to learn from, because it's not like you don't learn much from your typical degree of like what to do in it. So you have to learn peer to peer. And so then I got in contact with you guys.
It's awesome. Gerilynn, you were very quick to respond back to me via email, and you were like, absolutely would love to speak with her. I'm I'm just curious, like is that just instinctual for you? Is it something you were looking for? I mean, how's that work for you?
Um, I would say it's probably instinctual. I mean, as Morgan will probably attest, I mean, I am a mother of adult children, so there's kind of probably a little bit of maternal
Yeah.
aspect to my personality, whereas I want to help young people. And if anybody's heard my story before, I came from a family of engineers, and when I graduated with a degree in marketing communication. And when I said that this is the area that I wanted to go into, I got, the dog look like, like
Mm.
nobody knew even what that was or how to guide me or how to teach me to network or who I should speak to. And my first introduction was when I read something in a newspaper about a woman, and she was working at a pharmaceutical company, and I reached out to her because I figured, what do I have to lose? And she ended up taking the time to speak with me, and then she referred me for two event marketing jobs, and that's how my career started. So I am doing what others have done for me in the past.
That's great. In the chat here, Becca wrote that she's interested in learning more on how to structure mentorship and finally feeling like it's the right time to find a mentor, but have a lot of thoughts and know where to start. And, Becca, I think that's an interesting point. I think there's a lot of people that are in your shoes, right? I can tell you that from my experience, I would say I have like two mentors that I've worked with for years now. And both of those relationships started just by me asking if I could get a little bit of time. Just by identifying two people that I felt they were owners and CEOs of companies inside of my industry. So there was a relevance there. They were both much older than me and had established businesses and kind of businesses of where I wanted to get mine to, or vice versa, where you want your career to go. And I think I just asked for a little bit of time. Both had said yes. And then once I started asking questions and gaining some knowledge from them, it just kind of took its own path. So I think there's multiple ways about going about how to get a mentor for sure. Gerilynn, question for both of you. How did you guys, once you started talking, how did you establish like goals, expectations, like the way it would work? Was it natural? Did you, put anything formal together?
Morgan, you want to go first or me?
Sure. We didn't really put anything formal together. We just kind of had an open conversation about where I was at in my career, where she was at in her career, and what we could both bring to the table. We talked about my strengths and weaknesses. And so we just kind of landed on we're going to hang out for once a month together, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and just brainstorm and stay on board together.
Yep. And you were talking about, or the person, I think it was Becca in the chat, had asked about a formal mentoring process. Alas, I do not have a formal mentoring process. It's basically, for me, anybody that is wanting to get into this kind of relationship, I want to know what it is that they're looking to get out of it. Because Morgan and I, when we were reviewing our questions and talking about what we would talk about, I always say to her is like, I want to make sure I'm providing value to you. And that's, whether it's no matter where you are in your career, that's where you get that imposter syndrome because you're like, okay, am I helping her? I mean, the whole idea is she came to me so I could help her, but I hope I'm helping her. So it's not a formal plan. It's more talking to your mentee, seeing what it is that they are trying to achieve, whether it's a promotion, more clarity of thought, being able to present to executives, being able to write an executive presentation. There's a lot of different reasons that people come. So finding out what they are looking for is, I think, the first step.
Yeah, I think it's kind of creating clarity, right? Like you can't tackle everything at once. And I do think if being specific to event marketers, they are thrown a lot of different things and probably fairly easy for Morgan just to list off like, here's some things that I have to do that I'm not really sure how to do them, or I'd like to be able to do them better. Other paths you can kind of push me down. Gerilynn, what were some of the first pieces of advice that you gave Morgan? Any guidance in particular?
Yeah. I always have a lot of guys, and I don't know if I've shared. I mean, Morgan and I have talked so much. We've developed more like a friendship too, in addition to our mentor menteeship.
That's amazing.
But there are certain things, and for any of the podcasts I've been on or any articles that I write, I mean, I think there are certain qualities that an event marketer has to have, and they're essential. And I don't want to discourage anybody if they don't have these qualities, but I'm telling you, your job will be so much easier if you do have these. So first and foremost, you need to be organized. There's just no other way you can be successful. I don't care what software, what AI you use, you've got to be organized, an organized thinker. You need to be a strategic thinker. You need to always be planning, which leads me to point 3. You can't just have a plan A and a plan B. I always go to H because, as any event marketer knows, there are so many things, so many details and variables that inevitably one of the variables is going to go awry. So if you have thought about that plan A through H, you'll be fine because you've almost considered every scenario. And one of the things I always say is preparation breeds confidence. The more prepared you are, the more confident you're going to be because you got your stuff. You know what you're doing, and you're planning for every contingency. So planning, I think a strong decision maker is really important because, as any event marketer will tell you, decisions, when things go wrong, you need to course correct, and you have to be confident in the decision that you're making is the best one for your company, for your event, whatever it is. And I have only 2 more points, I promise you. The other one is, don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty, no matter how long you've been doing this. That is crucial. You got to park your ego at the door, because it's not about you. It's about the event and the experience in the company and your stakeholders. And then the other one that Morgan and I love is, and this is what I told her early on, and I tell my kids the same thing: no one's looking at you. I hate to break it to
I
all
love that one.
the
I love,
people.
that's my favorite one. You said that when we talked the first time, and I remember
No
writing
one's
it
looking
down. I
at
love
you.
it. I love
I
that.
know you might think you are on display, and you might think that people really care that much about. It's not that they don't care, but people are so, focused on what's in front of them and what they're doing,
Yeah.
that they're not looking at you. And when you have that attitude, you reach out to people on LinkedIn. You reach out to people in the newspaper, or
Mhm.
you reach out to, like Morgan, to you, and then you reach out to me. When all somebody can say is no or not answer you, it's not on you, it's on them. You
Yeah.
tried, you threw it out there. So no one's looking at
Love
you.
that. I love that no one's looking at you. That reminds me, I played a golf tournament last week. It's the city amateur, right? I mean, I've played competitive golf my whole life. And 2 of the 3 days I got paired with high school kids, very good high school kids, very good players. And honestly, each day at the end of the round, I wanted to pull the high school kid aside and say something similar to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to tell them, like, it's almost a form of getting them to relax to a degree,
Yeah.
right? Almost like, you're 16, but you're going to be a lifelong learner. Be a lifelong learner. Like, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't, like, no one's watching you right now to where it's a big deal. And you're not that good yet. Like, so you don't, like, you're not on
Stay
tour. So
humble. Yeah.
yes, it's that humble, lifelong learner. And when you can feel that way, I think there's a freedom to what you're saying
It's very
that you give
liberating.
people.
100%. It's very liberating, because you're like, okay, I'm gonna let my freak flag fly, and whatever
Yeah.
happens, happens, and nobody's looking at me anyway, so it's okay. Yeah, your world is a lot richer as a result if you're bolder. The bolder you
Yeah.
are, the richer your life is, I think. Hey, that's another life lesson from Gerilynn Marburger. So take it for what you
There's two things that you both had said there. One is, Morgan, you said earlier, you said, I, what we could both, we discussed what we could both bring to the table. I think that's interesting, right? Because, right, when you have difference in ages, you have difference in experience, difference in career path, different times in life, like everybody brings a certain thing to the table when you're in a mentorship position. So I think even for you, Morgan, to be thinking, what can I bring to the table? What can I bring to this, relationship? So it's not just a one-way street is great. And then Gerilynn, I think starting with like what you think is foundation of what makes a good event marketer, right? Those that you rattled off there. It's a great place, because why not start there? Why not have the basics and say, hey, Morgan, where do you feel like you're at? Where are you strong? Where are you weak? Where do you feel like you struggle? I think it's a great foundation builder to then go and dive deeper into all the details and questions that she's going to have for you. Morgan, when it comes to Gerilynn, like her style of mentoring, right? What do you like about it? Where do you feel like you've really gotten value from her? Like, where does it click for you?
So we pretty much immediately took the friend approach, and it was great. It felt like I was just having a long distance call with my friend who just happens to have an established career in marketing. We talk about our dogs, we talk about our travels, we talk about birthday planning, we talk about books, and we have the same taste in books. So it's really great. We always have a recommendation for one another, and then we'll
That's
read it,
great.
talk about it, and
Yeah.
then we'll get together. So we have a little book club on the side.
Yeah, we do. Event Marketing Book Club.
And so
Nice.
I felt comfortable really fast just talking to her about anything that I needed to, because we had that friendship built. And so when I come to her with the weakness that I'm having or something I'm struggling with, I'm never feeling like I'm judged or should sugarcoat it to her, because we have a friendship. She's not judging me. She's open
Yeah.
to helping me. She's here to help me. And it's just sometimes you just got to ask for the advice, and who's better to ask than a friend. So
Love that you guys have a little book club going.
We do.
I've recently, two different event marketers told me to read Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Gutierrez. I am 150 pages in, and I can tell you it's one of my favorite books I've ever read already.
Reasonable hospitality.
Unreasonable Hospitality. And we actually, Dia just wrote in the chat, she said that book is awesome. We gave a signed copy from Will Gutierrez to all the attendees of our event a week and a half ago. That's how much I love the book.
Ooh, okay.
We'll add that to
Yeah.
our.
And
Yep, add it to our book club.
I'm telling you, it's exceptional. I love it. And I think it pertains a lot to event planners, event marketers. It's through the eyes of a restaurateur, but it's all about delivering experience. It's all about delivering hospitality. It's really good.
Cool. Very cool. See, look at learning stuff.
You guys have
yeah.
You guys have any examples of like breakthrough moments or like significant learning experiences? You know, I thought about some of these questions and I thought to myself, I can tell I had a moment, you know, probably 7, 8 years ago where I called one of my mentors, and it was like one of the first real times that we had really talked in detail. And there was a question that I wanted to ask, and I was really afraid to ask it. I thought it was too personal. I thought it was too infringing on his business. And then I kind of was on the phone and I'm like, screw it. You talk about be a bold, Gerilynn. I was like, I'm doing it. You know,
just ask. Yep.
Here I am, I'm 30 years old and I'm like, screw it. And I asked and he laughed when I asked the question. He laughed and he was like, I love that you just asked me that. And then he just dove in it and he told me, and it was a game changer for my business. So I'm curious from you all, you know, have you had anything similar-ish to that, or have you had any breakthroughs or things you've talked about?
We did. It was funny because when we were talking about, because you kind of gave us a framework of the kinds of things you were going to ask us, we both had the same breakthrough moment in our mentorship, a mentee relationship. And Morgan she had some new management and she was trying to navigate the best way of telling them who she is, what she had to offer, what she's done in the past, and how she could make the company better. And so she was trying to formulate, an approach. And this applies pretty much to everything. And I tell this to a lot of other people, that always go to executives hands full. And what hands full means, come with an idea or solution. Don't come to them to say, I'm having this issue. How can you help me? How can you help me solve this? Come to them with something, because people appreciate that. People appreciate that you took the time to think about it and come to them with ideas. They might not agree with your ideas, or they may take a kernel of your ideas and run with it. But Morgan, so I was telling her, I thought this would be a good approach to take. And I was so thrilled because that afternoon after her meeting, she called me. And normally we don't usually call or text outside of our, once a month thing. And she was like, I talked to him. He was so impressed with me. He was so impressed. And so I was like, so many success. I mean, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm actually offering a value to her. So it validated me too. So Morgan, you.
Yeah, I feel the exact same. And it was really it was kind of just like a boost of confidence that I needed in knowing what to do, what next steps. Yeah. And she gave me a lot of topics to talk about too, or like really good questions that I wouldn't have thought about asking, just to kind of get a better grasp on this new person and their goals for the company. And so I learned his concepts, his style, and his goals, all from great questions that Gerilynn gave me. And I wasn't really scared to ask them either, because I was like, okay, if she recommended it, this must be normal things to ask.
Don't always listen to me.
I love that. I mean, I think it's a really good example, right? Because there are things that people come up with daily, whether it's strategy, whether it's leadership, whether it's tactical, like there's all different things that happen professionally that somehow, like, Morgan, you may have like belabored over that for weeks and not known what to do and been hesitant and procrastinated. Whereas you asked Gerilynn, she gave you really good, simple, straightforward advice. And you were like, I'm going to go ask. And then,
she did it
the
too.
result. Yeah. It's
That's
a great
example.
example
Like you
of
asking
mentorship.
that question of your mentor, where, sometimes you just have to rip the Band-Aid off. And that's what she did. She was like, I'm going in strong. I'm going in confident. I deserve to get the answers that I want, because she had a lot of questions about, her future and the direction of the company. And, when you go in with that level of confidence and clarity of thought, people appreciate it.
I would agree with you, especially the higher up that you go, if you have the right higher up, for sure.
Yes.
Have you all had any like challenging moments, anything that you've had to like navigate or anything that maybe like you struggled with?
Mm,
No,
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 we
it's
it's,
been
built a
easy.
really
That's good.
solid foundation from the start. And so we've never
It's
had any
good.
like challenging moments together.
yeah, like I said, it's always more hoping that I'm providing value to her.
Yeah.
And I was, Morgan knows this also, but HPE also has a mentor program within HPE. So, and I also have another mentee that, and it's great for me because it's a male, mid-career in field marketing. So different gender, different role, different place in their career, different place in life. And the things that he and I talk about are different. And the subjects
Yeah.
that we tackle are different than what Morgan and I tackle. But it's funny because when I walk away, I have the same reaction each time is like, God, I feel like I got so much more out of that. And I tell
It's
Nate,
great.
hey Nate, I tell him all the time, I was like, oh my gosh, who's mentoring who? Because
Yeah.
I'm always feeling like both of them are giving me something that I'm walking away with. So
Mhm.
I'm very blessed that way with both of them.
That's awesome. I know that I've had some struggles with mentorship where we have the same conversation on very big, difficult things, like very big, difficult things, not small things, where they're like, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to, and it's just like, I either don't want to do them or I feel like they don't understand, you know what I mean? And I've even had scenarios where I've not done what they advised, done something different, it's gone wrong. And I've had to go back to, in particular, Dave and tell Dave, this is what happened. And I hate that conversation, but I tell him. And sometimes he's told me, he goes, look, I think it's good that you do your
Yeah.
own thing sometimes. He goes, you can't
Yep.
listen to everything I say. He's
Yep.
like, you have to be your own man. You have to be your own person. You have to, so I think I was thinking like honesty and transparency at times. Like there's times where I'm like, hey, I did this because of this, even though you said otherwise, right? So,
And I've
I
told
like
Morgan
that.
that too. I wouldn't want her to follow my advice blindly because first of all, we work in two different industries with two different
Hmm.
type of companies. Our scenarios are different, our approaches are different. And I think the role that I can help her is to have her look at things through a different perspective, a different lens.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the value with the mentor mentee a lot of times comes from. It's not telling them things. And that's the other thing she and I talked about is so much of in order to have a successful relationship, mentor mentee, it's got to be balanced. It isn't me talking to her and telling her what to do. It's kind of like a therapist where they don't give you the answer, they make you figure out the answer. It's kind of the same thing. It's
Yeah.
a very reciprocal relationship where you say something and then the person says something back and they like I said, you don't want clones of you and me and Morgan all over the place. That's
No.
what makes the world exciting and interesting.
Tell me more about that balance in the conversation, right? I think that's interesting. I think that's a really good point of like the way conversations work when they're really valuable, even in mentorship. You have any like, I don't know, not examples, but just if you could talk more about that. I think that's interesting.
What would you say, Morgan? Because we do talk about the reciprocalness of the role.
Like what value it brings. I think it brings just, it makes you feel more comfortable as a whole because you're not worried you're going to them and being a burden because then you can bring something to the table, but also she can bring something to the table and you can work
Hmm.
together. So she could even ask me a question of something that she might be struggling with because I have a complete different background. We're at complete different stages, but I might still have an idea that would work out well. And so just because she's like the mentor and the mentee, you don't have to there's a lot of balance that comes into it.
And any event marketer will tell you we're always looking for that secret sauce, that silver
Yeah.
bullet, whether it's getting attendees, the audience acquisition, whether it's being effectively, making your booth be effective, whatever. And so like she was telling me about one of her events and how many people came and how long they stayed and how engaged they were. And I was like, what did you do? Tell me what you did
Yeah.
because I always want to know. I mean, I want to know what that secret sauce is because
Lifelong learner. Yeah.
yep. Yeah. So I think it is. I think your relationship of this sort will be much more fruitful
Yeah.
if it's balanced.
Morgan, do you ever feel like bad asking for Gerilynn's time? How do you handle that? Like, I know a lot of people I've spoken to, they don't want to impose on their mentor, right? How do you handle that?
At first, I did feel bad because a lot of my coworkers, they also have professional mentors and they pay them for their time. And so at first, I offered to pay Gerilynn for her time, but she immediately declined. And I was like, oh gosh, I hope I don't feel
Love
like
that.
that. I never felt like a burden at all.
It's
Never.
great.
Just how our relationship worked out. It was
Yeah,
really
I
good.
look forward to the conversations because I just, like I said, it's a learning for both of us.
Mhm.
And, I'm always interested in what she's working on at that point, where she is, especially because our company's going through some changes. So that's always kind of interesting and exciting to hear. It's a smaller company, so I know about the people that she works with, and so she tells me stuff about them. And so, yeah, so I look forward to it.
That's great. Gerilynn, what do you think is the hardest part about being a mentor? Is there anything difficult? Is there anything you struggle with? Is there anything maybe you feel like since doing this with Morgan, maybe you've gotten better at, or maybe, you've tried to
I'm
accelerate
still
in?
not good at it. No, I'm still not good at it. It's that whole just wanting to provide value. And this goes back to, and Morgan and I have also discussed this, is like, no matter where you are in your career, and if anybody tells you this, I kind of call BS on it. There is a level of imposter syndrome. That is a real thing. You feel like, I have this thing in my office that my daughter made me years ago because it's part of our family motto, which is fake it to make it. Because, everyone at some point in time feels like they are, why is she coming to me? Why is she asking me this? Why is he coming to me? Do I provide value to them? Am I being helpful? So to me, I don't know if that answered the questions, but
Yeah.
that's probably the most challenging thing for me is I always worry that I'm not providing value.
I can
Love
attest.
that.
To always providing value. Always.
That's great.
Thank you.
No, it's awesome. Morgan or Gerilynn, I'm curious. Do you have any? I love the specific example about Morgan going to leadership and whatnot. I think it's great. Do you have any other examples of things maybe event wise that you've talked about that maybe like tidbits? Maybe Morgan, you were struggling with something or curious, and Gerilynn, you kind of guided and helped her.
Yeah, so we're having our first booth at the world's largest HVAC conference ever. And I was feeling a bit of the imposter syndrome. I was like, Gerilynn, I am out of my wheelhouse a little bit. We have people in this space that are helping us, but I need some advice. What can I bring to this meeting that makes it sound like this isn't my first rodeo? And so she gave me numerous things that I could go and look up and look into and then present to the team. And I was like, okay, I feel so much more confident going into this because I'm just not staring at everybody with an empty face.
Yeah.
Did she
Hands
tell you
full.
fake it to make it?
Yeah.
I need to take a picture of that, Morgan, for you so you can have it in your office too. Yep,
Yeah.
fake it to make it. Going in with hands full. I mean, how can you go wrong with that?
I think if you go in without hands full, I think it's when people start asking questions, right? Meaning, it's kind of like the sales thing. When you're selling somebody something, if you're asking them for help in a way, they'll extend a hand and help you and pick you up versus, it's the same thing. If you come into a room with no ideas, with nothing, unprepared,
Yeah,
that garners questions versus when you come in there, people are more willing to collaborate, more willing to work with you. And I think, Morgan, that's a very good example because what you're saying about imposter syndrome, I think a lot of event marketers who are working at companies feel at one point in time or another. It's a term I've heard used a ton
yeah,
because, okay, you're walking into AHR, right? You have a big booth, you're hosting a dinner, you're doing activations. I mean, you're trying to drive pipeline at that
yep,
show. It's important. So now people are looking at you as like, what's the deal? What are we doing? And you have a role that plays in that. So having someone you can go to give you that confidence, affirmation, but then also it is more ideas on what to bring to the table, right? And direction, which just again gives you a straight line versus making you go like this, in a
Right.
swiggle. I love that.
And so much more, definitely more than when I started my career. Decisions are ROI based, metrics
Mhm.
based. I mean, so much of what we do, companies want to see the value of the return. And I think that's a good thing. Personally, I think
Yeah.
it's a good thing because I like being able to justify, whether it's my spend or whatever decisions I make. And I like to be able to back it up with, a monetary results. So I
Yeah.
think that part is, I think we all can learn from each other about, the best way to capture leads, the best way to capture ROI. That's huge for all of us. And I think that's a learning we all can share constantly.
Gerilynn, are there any specific changes that you've noticed in Morgan, like her progression since you started working together?
Yes, I have. Well, first of all, I just love her. I think that's probably fairly obvious. She has a very gracious spirit. She's just very gracious, and maybe it's a Southern thing. I'm not quite sure. One of the things I like about her is her quiet confidence, and she doesn't feel the need to come into the room and take up all the oxygen and talk over other people. She's content to listen, like when she's in her role, especially with like the new leadership. And, but with that quiet confidence, she's also has no problem sharing her opinion in a way that's, it's respectful and constructive. But it's a quality that I always admire in people, probably because I don't have that. I'm not naturally quiet. I wish I was. And so when I see it in other people, I'm like, damn, I wish I was like that.
Mm,
So with her, I love that she seems on the surface more soft spoken and more gracious and a little quiet, but there's a heart of a warrior underneath there. And don't mess with her. So
that's awesome.
yeah. So I love
That's
to
good.
see that continued growth because I'm, the more comfortable she is with me, the more I see it. And I think she'll be like that with her role too. The more confident she gets in her role as her skill set develops and grows and she has more trust in her own judgment, that's going to come out more and more and more. So it's a
I think
great
it's a
witness.
interesting observation. And Morgan, I think it's a really good compliment for you. Like, I have found two different kinds of people in business, right? As Gerilynn alluded to. And I think people like yourself, you have to find more opportunities to pitch in, but don't pitch in just to pitch in, right? But when you are thinking something, you got to have that affirmation to speak your mind more. I think the right leadership, I always use this term, the right leadership is always looking for people like yourself to pitch in and to say something and have you contribute more verbally. And then I think a lot of times I'm like Gerilynn, right? Like there's sometimes I don't know when to shut up. I'm just talking, right? I'm just going. I'm not afraid to. And I like to speak my mind. I am always super conscious of gearing back and saying, okay, find the 5 spots to really talk when you can be impactful versus the 10 times. So
Yeah.
there's opposing people, and I think each are working towards something a little different. So that's a really nice compliment.
I
Thanks,
think
Jerry.
people see a lot of times, I mean, we're all in Zoom calls where I think people sometimes talk just to hear themselves talk. And
Yeah.
Morgan does not do that at all. And
Yeah.
it's a really refreshing quality, I think, in this day and age where people want to put their opinions out there for people that are not reticent, because like I said, she's tough, but to hold back.
Yeah.
We don't in this generation and this society we live in, everybody spews everything they're
Yeah.
thinking, everything that comes in their head, it's out their mouth. So I appreciate that quality in others.
Well, we got a question, and I love to encourage questions by answering them. So, question here is, what are your suggestions for introverts who are fantastic at overthinking and getting in their own way on how to take that first step to reach out to someone they would like to explore mentorship with? I'll let either of you go. I'll finish. I have a thought on this.
I
Morgan.
would say just do it. I mean, what are you really scared of? They're going to say no. At the end of the day, it's not that bad if someone says no to you. And you're going to flatter them if you ask for their opinion. They're going to say thank you. You're going to flatter
Yeah.
them. I like to
Yep.
know that what they say is valued. So just ask. It's really not that scary.
It's true. And people love talking about themselves. I hate to say it, but, and the other thing, what did I say? No one's looking at you. You're an introvert. No one's looking at you. Don't worry about it. So that would
Yeah,
be my advice.
I thought about this a little while ago, and I was listening to a podcast. This is the Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, and he had Scott Galloway on, and they were talking about mentorship. And one of the things that I think it's is start small. So if you're an introvert and it's difficult for a big ask and to get out there, whatever it may be, it doesn't hurt if you have somebody identified to basically, you have to start somewhere. You have to make the first move,
Yeah.
right? Like you're right. So regardless, but start small and maybe just ask them to get coffee, or maybe just ask them, hey, I have a quick question, and I've noticed based on your experience and what I've seen you do that you probably have some really good advice, right? That flattery, and just say, yeah, I got one question for you. Do you have 15 minutes? I would really love some help. People are eager to help. That one question may turn into mentorship, and it's a way to kind of get the relationship going with
And if you're an
little ask.
introvert, the other thing is ask your question via email.
Yeah.
Ask them a question. I have people reach out to me via LinkedIn, and a lot of times I'll just, they ask me a question via email and I'll just answer them via email. So if you're somebody that's not quite comfortable, if you have maybe an email relationship that can segue, or you can
Mhm.
parlay that into, a mentorship relationship, you already have that connection with that person. So maybe
Yeah.
start
No, I
that
like
way.
that idea. I like that idea for introverts. Morgan, talk a little bit about how this mentorship has impacted you professionally and personally, right? Like because I think at the end of the day, yes, it's a two-way street for sure. And you both have to bring something to the table. But like I know with my mentor, I mean, he could say whatever he wants, but I have definitely gotten more out of it than he's gotten. And I'm incredibly grateful for him. So I'm just curious, like, how has it impacted you in this short time period?
I think even though Gerilynn says I'm confident, I think it has helped with my confidence too. It's helped kind of wrinkle out the imposter syndrome because I have someone to go to talk to about my ideas and brainstorm with. And so that way, when I do bring my ideas to the table at the office, I already know that they're pretty solid, that they're pretty good. And so I'm not just like spitballing with them. And then I spitball with her. And then it also helps to know you have someone in your corner too that you can
Yeah.
go to when it gets tough, or when you have like a silly question or a good question, any type of question. You can go
Mhm.
to ask them, ask for ideas, ask for answers, ask for resources. So I think it's just helped a lot.
It's a safe space, I think, when you have that. So it's a space where you're supposed to be learning, so you don't feel embarrassed about asking.
Yeah.
Love that. Gerilynn, I think, I've heard people talk about it, right? And it's kind of just not come full circle, but I think like event marketers kind of know that there is a lack of mentorship, there is a lack of information, there is a lack of knowledge share in the event space, right?
Mhm.
So, what kind of advice would you give people who are like, how can they become a mentor, right? Like, I was really impressed the other day. I spoke with Heather Schneider she works for Tyler Technologies, and she's like, I do mentorship, I love it. She's like, so she, I think there are people who just naturally gravitate towards it, but how would you encourage other people that are experienced to get involved, mentor somebody, and be open to it?
I think there's just a lot of different avenues that you could take. I mean, like I said, we have a formal mentorship program in our company. I'm sure a lot of other companies have that. Volunteer for it. It does not take much time. I mean, again, it's like half an hour once a month, maybe more if there's something going on.
Yeah.
I think, again, when don't be afraid to comment on things, whether it's on LinkedIn, if you see an interesting post, if somebody asks you a question, like for example, after this, we'll be giving our emails out, or our LinkedIn account. And so don't be afraid to reach out, contact
Mhm.
somebody. If you want to be the mentor, I say I would go to communities where you can have conversations. I have a one that I belong to, and I was telling Morgan about it. She's like, "Oh, I want to be part of that." And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome." So, you could, from situations like that, I think they're called Ice Hub, and really, really interesting mind share. But from there, you may meet other people that are looking for mentors. So just I think immerse yourself in the community, the events community is a helpful way of building that.
You have any, do either of you have any advice? Maybe two people have just kind of, gotten together for mentorship and they're just starting out. They're in their first month or their first meeting or something. You have any advice for them on kind of how to kick it off, or how to, you two have seemed obviously to hit it off and have a good thing going. So what kind of advice would you give people that they're just starting, whether mentee or mentor?
Compare your Goodreads account. No, I'm just kidding. Be open. You have to tell them your fears and your weaknesses that you're struggling with, or you're not going to get what out of it that you're looking for. But you also have to be open to hearing what they say. And it might not always be easy to hear, but sometimes growth isn't easy. So you just have to be open.
Yeah. I think, laying out what you want to learn or grow or do. The other mentor that I have at HPE, he's really good because he'll send me like a topic. Like I want to learn
ahead of
about,
time.
executive presentations. So, like Morgan, we start on that and then we always, digress to like a million other things. But so like maybe I would have something pulled up that I could share with him, because I told him my boss is going to a new format away from PowerPoint and back to like Word docs. And so I had brought that up for him. One time he wanted to know about when you have to go and present in front of an executive. So we have, he'll kind of, he's much more organized than I am, but the job, actually, I was going to say the job of laying out what you want is on the mentee. It's not on the mentor.
Yeah,
The
I agree
mentor
with
is
that.
the
Yeah.
person that is providing the direction, but the questions that are being sought, that needs to come from the mentee. Like
Yep.
at HP, they made sure, like I was going to reach out to him to set up the initial call, and they're like, no, that person is supposed to contact you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of the whole lesson of that relationship.
You have to be honest about what you're struggling with and what you need help with. And I think sometimes in life, people, they go to the people that they can get the answer that they want from at times, rather than, so I think when you have a mentor, it's like, if you have a good mentor, then you're not going to get the answer you want. You're going to get the answer that they have and the advice that they have. And then it's on you not to spin the question. It's on you to be vulnerable. It's on you to ask the right things and not be insecure about what you're asking. And I think Morgan touched on it earlier, right? She said, growth isn't easy. You just have to be open. And that is the truth. You have to know that you don't know what you don't know. You have to be willing to
And there's
admit you
nothing
don't
wrong
know.
with that
Yep.
either.
Yeah.
Nothing
I
wrong with that.
mean, I can tell you right now, I have, as a business owner, I have asked questions to other business owners that I'm like, wow, they're going to know that I don't know this. And that's going to be, it's embarrassing, right? Or it could feel like, you kind of clam up. You're like, oh God, I don't want anyone to know that I don't know that. But you just have to do it. You just have to bully through it.
It's okay. You don't know
Nice.
everything. Yeah.
No, that's for sure. I certainly don't. Well, Morgan, Gerilynn, you guys have been amazing. It's so good hearing like your story. You guys seem to have a great rapport. I think this is super helpful for people that are finding mentors or seeking them, just starting. I just want to encourage everybody before we go. Hey, look, if we can help in any way, the way that we connected Morgan and Gerilynn, we are more than willing to do that. We have a lot of extremely talented senior level, head of global events, director, all these different 10 plus year people that have figured out what they're doing and have a lot of experience in the challenges that a lot of people are facing. We are happy to reach out to them on the side and see if we can connect you. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. If we can be a conduit in any way to connect people like we did with Morgan Gerilynn, we're absolutely happy to. And I would encourage anybody, if you are looking for a mentor, reach out for sure. And we will see what we can do. Morgan, Gerilynn, thank you both so much. It is really cool hearing your guys' story. Ish is going to put your LinkedIn's in the chat. People can find you, look you up, write to you, whatever they need to do.
Okay. Well, thanks for asking us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
This has just been fun.
It was a blast having you both. It's cool for me to see how much you guys have hit it off and essentially kind of where the relationship has gone, and Gerilynn, I'm grateful for you to say yes and jump in. And Morgan, I'm glad you asked. I think it's cool you asked.
Well, you may have a second career as a matchmaker there, Matt. So if
Maybe.
the event thing doesn't work out, you can be a
matchmaking.
Connector. Yeah, you can matchmake us. Millionaire matchmaker.
In my next life, then we'll really need Andy Cohen. So
that's right.
Have our own show.
On Patty.
Awesome.
Yep. Okay. See you guys.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Gerilynn, Morgan, thank you so much. We'll see everybody later. Thanks for joining us.